This is the Section 9.4 notes. Today we are going to be finding solutions to quadratic equations using just the equations. So we're no longer going to graph these using Desmos. We're going to use the equations. So problem number 1 says, what are the solutions of the equation, in parentheses 4x plus 1, and in other parentheses x minus 2 equals 0. Notice how they already have this quadratic function factored. So they already have the parentheses in place. Once you already have the parentheses in place, all you have to do, since it's equal to 0, is you're going to take each parenthesis separately and set it equal to 0. So I'm going to split them. So I'm going to take the 4x plus 1 parenthesis and set that equal to 0. And then I'm going to take the x minus 2 and set that part equal to 0. So I split them off, setting each part equal to 0. Then I solve each new equation for the x. So this first one, I have 4x plus 1 equals 0. So I have to subtract 1 from each side. That gets me 4x equals negative 1. Then I divide by 4 on each side. So I get my answer to be x equals negative 1/4. So that's one answer. Then I go to the other side. This side's actually easier. I just have to add 2 to both sides. So my other answer for this equation will be x equals 2. So there are two answers because there will be two places where this quadratic function would cross the x-axis. One would be at x equals negative 1/4, and one's going to be at x equals 2. So go ahead and pause the video and attempt to try these 4 guided practice problems. So hopefully when you did this first problem, you should have gotten x equals negative 1 and x equals 5. The second problem should be x equals negative 3/2 and x equals positive 4. This third one should have been y equals negative 1/2 and negative 14. And this last one, you should have received n to be 2/7 and 4/5. Just leave the fractions like fractions. If you get them as decimals, that's fine as well. Just doing an extra step. So problem number 2, you'll notice it says, what are the solutions of the equation x to the second plus 8x plus 15 equals 0? We need to factor first to get those parentheses. So we go back to chapter 8 when we are factoring. This is going to be from section 8.5. if you don't know how to factor. So we're going to start with the x. There is no number in front of my x to the second, so I'm going to put the 15 on the top, and the 8 goes to the bottom. So I need two numbers that multiply to 15 but add to 8. Those will be 5 and 3. So in my parentheses, I'll have x plus 5 and x plus 3. Now that's where I would normally stop in chapter 8. However, this is chapter 9, so we're going to go a step further and set them equal to 0, which means I need to break them off and set them equal to 0 individually. Once they're both set equal to 0, then I solve. So on this side, I'm going to subtract 5 from both sides. So I'll get x to equal negative 5 as one of my answers. On this other side, I'll subtract 3 from each side, so I'll get x equals negative 3. So my answers are going to be x equals negative 5 and x equals negative 3. So go ahead again, pause the video and attempt this guided practice problem. You're going to have to factor first, then set each one equal to 0. When you solved this practice problem, you should have gotten p equals negative 5 and p also equals positive 4. If you did not get those two as your answers, pause the video again and get some help. Ask those questions from a teacher. The next problem is at the top of the next page. So it says problem number 3, what are the solutions of 4x squared minus 21x equals 18? Before I can do anything with this problem, I need to make sure that it's equaling 0, not 18. So to do this, I have to subtract 18 from both sides. So I will end up with 4x squared minus 21x minus 18 equals 0. They all are separate because they all have different terms. This one has an x squared, this one has an x, and this one doesn't have any letters whatsoever. So this is my new equation. This is what I have to factor. Now there is a number in front of the x to the second, so that means when I do my big X, I have to multiply the first number times the last number to get that top number. So 4 times negative 18 is negative 72. The middle number will go down below, negative 21. So I need two numbers that multiply to negative 72 but add to negative 21. Those will be negative 24 and 3. So because this is the number in front of the x squared method, this is section 8.6 if you don't remember, I have to split the middle in half. I cannot go directly into parentheses. So to do that, I'm going to take negative 24x on the left side and I'm going to put 3x on the right side. The front part just drops down and the back part just drops down. Then I split the equation in half. So now I'm taking a look at the left side. What goes into 4x to the second and negative 24x? Well, I can take a 4x out of both of those. So that'll become 1x minus 6. On this other side, what goes into 3x and negative 18? That'll be a 3. So that reduces down to 1x minus 6. My parentheses are identical. So my final answers will be 4x plus 3 for the outside parts. And the inside parts, which were identical, was 1x minus 6. Okay, so again, that was 8.6. We're going to take this a step further, and we're going to set this equal to 0. So I have to take each of these parentheses separately and set it equal to 0. So my first one was 4x plus 3. So I take 4x plus 3, and I set that equal to 0. My second one is x minus 6 equals 0. So now I have to solve both of these. So I'm going to subtract 3 on the side for both. So I'll get 4x equals negative 3. Then divide by 4. So my answer will be x equals negative 3 over 4, or negative 3/4. Okay. If you get that as a decimal, that's fine. It'll be negative 0.75. Okay, decimals will work just as well as fractions. This next one, all I have to do is add 6 to both sides. So my final answer here will be x equals 6. So my two solutions will be x equals negative 3/4 and x equals 6. Okay, this very last one. Go ahead and pause the video and solve this problem. Okay, you should have gotten as your answer x equals 7 and x equals 7. You should have gotten 2 7s. Sorry, they should be negative. You should have gotten 2 negative 7s. Okay, if you didn't receive 2 negative 7s, go ahead and pause the video and ask for some help.